Hi everyone, this is the first episode of Sokolnikova Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about the film Mean Girls. I was stuck by Jane's phrase that Regina is a dictator, and indeed she is. But let's analyze the origin of the film, the characters' behavior, and whether there are historical references to certain actions. The entire episode is my personal analysis and does not claim to be an absolute truth. The source material for the film is a Rosalind Wiseman book, Queen Bees and Wannabes, 2002, which is not about just relationship between girls, but about a cruel hierarchy. Wiseman graduated with a major in political science and applied her knowledge to teenage groups, discovering that school hierarchies replicate the structure of authoritarian regimes. Often, it's the teenage leaders who compensate their inner insecurity by exercising hyper-control over their surroundings. You're not gonna buy this skirt without hearing our opinion, are you? It's a collective choice. Boys are the subject to collective choice. Cady's admission to massless is followed by Regina's sharp reaction. You can't do this. This is social suicide. These words are not followed by any confrontation and are offset by Regina's words. Damn, you're so lucky you have us to guide you. Gretchen cannot wear hoop earrings, or these are exclusively Regina's items. This is reminiscent of totalitarian regime, where people are prohibited from wearing certain items, hairstyles, and etc. This reminds me of Kim Jong-un, who banned leather coats to emphasize his identity, or, for example, long nails in ancient China, which were a symbol of wealth and high social status, indicating that a person did not engage in physical labor. So Regina forbids Gretchen from wearing hoop earrings because she's protecting her identity, and this her social status, standing out from her plastics. In the group, no one on their own, all decisions are discussed and decided by vote, taking everyone's opinion into account. But we will return to this point later. So, again about Regina. Body cult, strict diets, ritual uniforms, pink Wednesdays. Every day is literally scheduled, and if you don't stick to the uniform, you lose the opportunity to eat at the same table. But it's not just about Cady who loses this opportunity, it's about all of them. This shows that everyone is equal, but why did Cady join the plastics? As we have seen, Regina controls everything. Janice called her a dictator, and indeed she is. Initially, Regina kept Cady on a leash to control potential position. Cady is new at school, and we'll turn to this later. The sacralization of personal space. Regina's house is a closed residence, and only her plastic have access to it. And as we can see, they often meet there. The apparatus of repression, Burn Book, tells of dissent, numbers from about students in school. But why doesn't anyone resist to speak out? It's a fear of social exclusion. Research shows that being an outcast is as painful for our brains as suffering physical trauma. This diary contains lots of gossip about almost everyone in school, and I want to make a reference to Stasi archives, kind of denunciation system. So Gretchen acts as an informer, and she's described with these words. Gretchen knows everybody's business. She knows everything about everyone. By my opinion, she is very nervous. Remind me of a balloon that's about to burst up with gossip if something goes wrong. And something immediately clicks on her when she finds out that a new girl likes Regina's ex. Without stopping and justify herself by saying, ex-boyfriends are just off limits to friends, her repeat warmth are softened by a caring, don't worry, I will never tell Regina what you said. Nudging her head and winning her over with these words, it will be our little secret. After a while, Regina calls Cady. I know your little secret, but at the same time, she doesn't care, adds an aftertaste about Aaron. All he cares about is school and his mom and his friends. Cady asks, "Is that bad?" Regina distances herself and says again, "If you like him," this leaving Cady in limbo, that she doesn't care, but even when she supposedly does her a favor, saying, "I could talk to him if you want," driving Cady back in to send things over and giving her hope before throwing her under the bus when Regina gets close to Aaron at the party. I remember these scenes because they show Gretchen's nervousness. Maybe she doesn't want to follow and tell Regina everything, and Regina's behavior during this phone call with Cady clearly shows how easily she manipulates, playing emotional ping pong with her opponent. And through the call we can see Cady's mood quickly change, signaling that she easily accepts such manipulation. Actually, I think Regina was dating Aaron for appearance sake, and she plays game with him. He accepts them and even likes them because they're wrapped up in the sweet package. He goes with the flow. Not to say Cady affection, he goes to her at the party. Regina approached him and he's already with her. But he's not entirely stupid. He doesn't like when people use him for their own benefit. So again about Gretchen. Her limit is that Regina didn't send her candy for Christmas. She unconsciously let slip a secret about Regina's parents or her nose job, which shows her growing anxiety that Regina is gradually distancing herself from her. Her hot topic is a report on a history class about Caesar. She relishes and recounts this report with resentment, putting her whole self into these lines, shouting out the last lines. But what about people who are against Regina? One of them is Janice. All the plastic agree with Regina and don't speak when she's speaking. They don't get into conflict with her, but one of those who does it is Janice. She is complete opposite to Regina's group. She makes very harsh statements and has a strong desire for revenge. But for what? Why does she want Regina? Later, it turns out that Janice used to be a plastic herself, a close friend of Regina, but because of her close interest in Regina, she causes innovation in their group or even sabotage. She's kicked out of the group and becomes forgotten. Janice's style is not like emo or goth, it's grunge. The film itself takes us back to the events of 2000s, but grunge was popular in 1990s, a bygone era. This choice of clothing reminds me of her attitudes toward legitimizing the past, like German nationalism in 1930s, dissatisfied with the results of World War I. They were proud of a new empire created by Bismarck, but after the defeat, when the socialists took power and decided to change the regime, they turned to familiar symbols of Bismarck himself, thus nostalgically recalling the old days and distancing themselves from the new ones. Now let's back to Cady. Since I brought up comparisons, this one may seem too harsh, but what if Cady is Adolf Hitler? Okay, let me explain my theory. Hitler and Cady started out without any status. They didn't have any influential contacts. But then Cady met Janice, who quickly brought her up and told her everything. But why would Janice share such things with a newcomer? As I said, Cady had no reputation to begin with. She was like a blank slate. People's attitudes toward her were neutral, and she could literally fit into any group. If Cady joined, say, the plastic group, she would not be able to become a rival. This immediately brings to mind the events of 1932 election. After the socialists supported the president, the socialist who won the 1932 election came in a second and lost badly to Hitler's party. Hindenburg himself agreed to let Hitler head the government exactly because he expected to be able to control him. However, Hitler appeared to be a random passerby who was not entirely familiar with such matters, and therefore could be easily controlled. Thus, Janice used Cady with intention of overthrowing the authority, and Regina accepting her into her group, while Janice is already preparing various forms of sabotage. We will turn to the form of sabotage later, but Adolf Hitler was used in exactly the same way by the elites interested in changing Weidmann Germany. In fact, the fact that the left came to power after World War I caused particular resentment among military industry, big businessmen, and etc. They hoped to use Hitler to influence and change the ruling course, and to conclude, both Hitler and Cady were initially tools in the hands of more knowledgeable and important players. So important aspects of Regina's influence include Regina's boyfriends, hot body, an army of skanks, supposedly face cream but it actually foot cream, this trying to ruin Regina's face, fake diet bars, they spoiled Regina's slim figure, and because of them, she can try on dresses in store and sit at the table. And this brings us back to dress code rules. Regina's gaining weight from eating diet bars. The only thing that fit her is sweatpants. At lunch, her plastic behaved in a manner unusual for them. They confront Regina. They kick her out of the table because she doesn't follow the rules that she invented by herself. She dismissed the rules as a nonsense, but her plastic becomes even angrier and kicked Regina out of the table. Any dictatorship is based on fear and the illusion of leaders' infallibility. But as soon as the leader loses control, the system devours him. Hitler did the same thing after he came to power, using Reichstag in German parliament. This is a controversial point, but some people think that is what exactly helped Hitler to take power. This is how power collapses. Regina takes the backseat, having sabotaged the entire group with passages from her book, and it seems like we can breathe easily. This event reminds me of Stalin's passing in 1953 or the revolution in 1917. The entire school, like lost people, gather in a gym and, in a state of nervousness, decides how to live now. But what about the trio? The plastics, as citizens of Soviet Union, still feel oppressed and confused about what will happen next. But they're accustomed to the regime. The plastic follow Cady, but either of their two could have become the leader, but they're used to obeying. And as usual, they ask Cady as once they asked Regina. Cady didn't want to be a leader first, but because of the plan to overthrow Regina, she replaced her and took her place. She doesn't know how to command, but she likes the new situation. She doesn't create the new image of leadership. She's not Regina, but the image is already formed in her mind. She wears the same earrings that were Regina's signature when she hosts her first party at the house. She uses Regina's phrase, "shut up," out of the context, simply copying her. And Aaron's words, "you're just like a clone of Regina," shows that she's indeed just copying her. Let's move on the scene in the gym. I like how Miss Nuremberg behaves. Her last name is literally refers to Nuremberg's trials. She's like a judge who exposed all the teenagers, finding out that everyone in the gym has been bullied by everyone else, that everyone has said something behind the back of the person sitting next to them. And after such candor, everyone returns to normal. And we have come to the end. I don't think that Tina Fey or Mark Waters intended to convey such messages in their film, But enough of viewing of the film and analysis of its creation led me to draw such parallels. Anyway, thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on my analysis. Good luck and see you soon.